Provide equal opportunities, not equal distribution. In this episode, I'm going to address the question, how do I empower my children instead of enabling them? You're going to really get blown away with what I'm going to share with you in this episode, because this is a game changer for families to be able to allow your children to learn how to be responsible and accountable instead of blaming, justifying, or operating in shame. So, I'm Doug Andrew. I've been blessed in my life to have written several books, and one of my favorite surrounding this topic is titled Entitlement Abolition. Okay? How to lead your family or your business, your employees, whoever you care about, from me to we. Together we are better. And so when people ask me the question, how do I empower my children instead of enabling them, bailing them out, always rescuing them, it's critical how you set it up and what their expectations are. So the problem is, a lot of times in this society, we have experiences, we go out and we work hard, and we want the best for our children. And oftentimes we are actually hindering their progress instead of helping them, because we don't want them to go through the struggles we went through. So this is why it's no surprise that children come to us and say, "Hey, Dad, can I have, will you pay for?" And I've heard this many times from clients. And so we see this in trusts. As people begin to look at their assets and they draft a document that will leave behind their assets to their children, most trusts are set up with equal distribution rules of governance, thinking, well, I'm just going to divide this up equally. You wouldn't believe how many times I have heard people say, well, you know what? I worked so hard. My parents grew up in the Great Depression, and they raised me to be frugal, and I worked so hard. Man, my kids will never have to work as hard as I did. And then these people would come to me 10, 20, 30 years later, and I'd say, "What's up?" And they would go, "Doug, I don't know what's wrong with my kids. They don't even know how to work." And I would go, "Well, maybe you stole that from them. Maybe in your effort to try to give them everything, you actually hindered them instead of helped them by rescuing them, by making it easy for them. You always said what made a man out of you is how you overcame all the struggles, and you think you've been helping your children." So I'm going to give you some ways to not enable children, how to empower them and still bless them with some of the prosperity that you've had, but don't just dump it in their laps. Don't just pay for everything, because you're going to learn, get ready, that there's nothing more unequal than the equal distribution to unequals. Did you hear that? A lot of trusts, when you die, are chunk, divided up equally and dumped in the kids' laps, and it ruins half of the kids in this country, because we think that equal distribution is the fairest way to treat. No, equal opportunities, not equal distribution. So get ready, and you'll understand this better as I continue. So as I have taught many families how to empower their children instead of enable them, this has been one of the game-changing concepts. In fact, we gamify this. And this is what we call the $2 rule. But let me frame it this way. And I learned this from Marshall Thurber, one of my mentors and good friends, who learned this from Dr. Edwards Deming. He's the total quality management engineer that transformed Japan to the quality they put out today in electronics and cars. Compared to when I was a kid, anything made in Japan was junk or cheap. And unfortunately, that's why the big three now are Toyota, Honda, and Nissan instead of Ford, GM, and Chrysler. Okay, that's another story. Dr. Deming would explain it this way. He said, unfortunately, in the world today, A lot of people choose to operate below the line. They deal below the line, and he would draw a line here, in one of three zones. The lowest zone is blaming. Why you can or cannot or did not do something, okay? Justification. Justifying why you did or did not or can or cannot do something. Or shame. Oh, I've never been taught that. I don't have any money. I can't. You know me. He said, it doesn't matter which of those three zones you choose to operate in. It's all an absolute waste of time, energy, money, resources. It's only when you deal above the line that you progress. What's above the line? 2 words. Any curveball life throws at you, he said, you must respond with all your factory-installed, God-given ability. I teach this to my kids and grandkids this way. Instead of being the victim, like a clam on the bottom of the ocean waiting for plankton to float to you, no. America was built with an eagle on the flagpole, not a clam. An eagle goes out and responds, hunts for its prey. It's in motion. It doesn't sit there and wait for everybody to take care of them, okay? And so you want to respond with all your ability. That's responsibility to yourself, but to others is accountability. And so he would gamify this. And he told Marshall Thurber to go out to a Fortune 500 company, explain this, put this on posters throughout the company, and for 90 days they would play this game, and it was called the $2 rule. Anytime anybody dealt below the line, anybody at the company could go, was that $2? And if they agreed, they would voluntarily contribute $2 to a jar, and he put several jars throughout the company. They were going to collect the money and give it to a children's hospital as a charitable gift. So they played the game for 90 days. Everybody came with dollar bills in their purse and money clips. Do you know in 90 days they collected over $250,000? Guess what happened to the productivity of that company? They continued to play the game the rest of the year, and it was the best year ever. Everybody got a huge raise because everybody started dealing above the line. So we play this game on family vacations. If we take off for a camping trip or we go to Maui, Hawaii, the minute the plane leaves the tarmac, I just say, kids, grandkids, the $2 rule is in effect. They know exactly what I'm talking about until we land again. So for the next week, if we go scuba diving, let's say, and I get there and we have 6 children and my 5th child, Mindy, sometimes she's maybe paid $2 more than some of the others. And if I were to say, Mindy, where's your snorkel, mask, and fins? If she were to say, well, I would have remembered to bring them, but Aaron was bugging me, so I forgot. $2, she has to contribute $2. If she were to say, oh, Dad, when we were snorkeling yesterday, I broke the strap on my mask or on my fins. It wouldn't have done any good to bring it because the strap was broke. No, you should have reminded us back at the dive shop to get a new strap. $2. If she were to say, Dad, you know me. You have to remind me. I'm always forgetting. Oh, shame, shame, shame. $2. It's all an absolute waste. Now we have to take time to go back and get her snorkel, mask, and fins. So how does she deal above the line? If she were to say, oh, I'm so sorry, everybody, my bad. Here's some guava nectar and some sweet rolls. I am going to pay the taxi to take me back to the dive shop. I'm going to get my snorkel, mask, and fins and be right back. And banana splits are on me tonight. I am so sorry. Now she's dealing above the line. How do we feel about Mindy now? Yeah, we appreciate that she's being responsible and accountable. Use this. Once you frame this, it will be a game changer in your family to empower your children instead of enable them. So get ready to understand how this concept can play into abolishing the entitlement mentality where people put themselves in a victim role. So this can be a game changer for your family. And so we gamify this. All of our children and grandchildren know anytime I say, was that $2? They know I'm asking them, were you dealing below the line in the zones of blame, justification, or shame? And let's be responsible and accountable. Now, The key here is to understand that we love our children. We don't want to see them suffer. But oftentimes when we think we're helping them, we're actually hindering them by bailing them out or rescuing them. And so oftentimes I have taught this to even our grandchildren. Several years ago at our annual Grandpa's Camp, when we have the teenagers there for the first 3 days doing high adventure and talking, teenage talk. And then we bring the 8-year-olds and older to join them, and then the 4-year-olds and older join Grandma, but we bring them all together. And I was teaching this concept of being responsible and accountable and being empowered. And so I gave every one of the grandchildren a jar each with caterpillars in the jar. And they watched in awe as those caterpillars made their chrysalis, the cocoon. And then they took those jars home from Grandpa's camp, and what happened in a few weeks? They saw the measure of their full creation as they became monarch butterflies. But I warned them, when you see that butterfly begin to emerge, it's going to struggle. And you're going to be so tempted to help it out. And if you do, it will die. Now, the same thing is true with a little chick coming out of an egg. So when they began to see that butterfly struggle, they were tempted to help it out. They wanted to peel off some of the chrysalis. And they remembered Grandpa's lesson. Oh, if we do, it will die. It has to struggle to get strong. That's why Grandpa taught us, whenever we're struggling in life, Grandma and Grandpa, Mom and Dad will be there to give us a hand up, but never a hand out. Because they don't want us to die. They want us to learn from the struggles and get strong as we overcome those trials in life. And they can handle any curveball life throws at them, because we can be there as a support, but not to constantly rescue them, because we don't want them to die. Does that make sense? So this is a powerful concept. I'm going to explain next how you can do this with different methods so that you can empower those you care about instead of enabling them. As we think about empowering our children instead of enabling them, make sure that you provide ways where you can give them the equal opportunities that I've been talking about instead of equal distribution, where you can loan them money. You can match funds. If they save so much, you'll match dollar for dollar or 50 cents on the dollar. If they earn a scholarship, you can match it. You can give them grants for starting a business venture or what have you. But if you don't have an understanding and you're constantly shelling the money out without teaching them, they'll constantly be coming back for more. One of my favorite stories about this is Abraham Lincoln and what he needed to do with a family member that he had loaned money to. And so I'm going to read you this letter because it says it way better than I could say it. And this is dated January 2nd, 1851. He says, "Dear Johnston, your request for $80, now this is back then, $80 was a lot of money, I do not think it best to comply with now. At the various times when I have helped you a little, you have said to me, we can get along very well now. But in a very short time, I find you in the same difficulty again. Now, this can only happen by some defect in your conduct. What that defect is, I think I know." This is Abraham Lincoln. "You are not lazy, and still you are an idler. I doubt whether, since I saw you, you have done a good whole day's work in any one day." Now, this is tough love, right? But I ask my kids sometimes, do you want me to be honest or gentle? They say, "Dad, I want you to be honest." Okay, it may not be gentle. "You do not very much dislike to work, and still you do not work much merely because it does not seem to you that you could get much for it. This habit of uselessly wasting time is the whole difficulty. It is vastly important to you, and still more so to your children, that you should break the habit. It is more important to them because they have longer to live and can keep out of an idle habit before they are in it easier than they can get out after they are in. Now, if you're not following this, you ought to read this letter. You can Google it. He now says, "You are now in need of some money. And what I propose is that you shall go to work tooth and nail for somebody who will give you money for it. Let father and your boys take charge of your things at home, prepare for a crop and make the crop. And you go to work for the best money wages or in discharge of any debt you owe that you can get, and to secure you with a fair reward for your labor. I now promise you that for every dollar you will, between this and the 1st of May, get for your own labor, either in money or as your own indebtedness, I will then give you one other dollar. By this, if you hire yourself at $10 a month, from me, you will get 10 more, making $20 a month for your work. In this, I do not mean you shall go off to St. Louis or the lead mines or the gold mines in California. But I mean for you to go at it for the best wages you can get close to home in Coles County. Now, if you will do this, you will soon be out of debt, and what is better, you will have a habit that will keep you from getting in debt again. But if I should now clear you out of debt, next year you would be just as deep in as ever. You say you would almost give your place in heaven for $70 or $80. Then you value your place in heaven very cheap. For I am sure you can, with the offer I make, get the $70 or $80 for 4 or 5 months' work. You say, if I will furnish you the money, you will deed me the land. And if you don't pay the money back, you will deliver possession. Nonsense. If you can't now live with the land, how will you then live without it? You have always been kind to me, and I do not mean to be unkind to you. On the contrary, if you will but follow my advice, you will find it worth more than 80 times $80 to you. Affectionately, your brother, Abraham Lincoln." That was his brother. Are you getting it? So let's connect the dots. In this episode, I've been answering the question, how do I empower my children instead of enabling them? And I've talked a lot about providing equal opportunities versus equal distribution. There's a lot of people that have come to me and they have trusts that, frankly, the attorney was trained to just simply sit down and ask the couple, so you want to be fair, don't you? When you die, you want to divide all this stuff up equally, don't you? And they get you nodding up and down, and you don't realize the attorney is going, hot diggity dog, I got another one. And they use a boilerplate document, and when you die, they simply put in your trust your assets, your kids' names, and at death, it's chunk, 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 chunk. They divide up, usually killing the goose, laying the golden eggs. You have to sell the business, you have to sell the assets, because you've got to be fair, you got to divide it up equally, and it's dumped in their laps, and it ruins half of the kids. I mentioned that there's nothing more unequal than the equal distribution to unequals. Our Creator does not do that. Our Creator does not give equal distribution of health to all of us, regardless of how some of us may choose to abuse our bodies. So why would we do that with those that we care about? We want to provide equal opportunities, that if they have skin in the game, they save towards college, or they have a business endeavor, or they want to do this or that, they want to go in the military, they want to go on a religious or humanitarian mission. In our family bank, we have rules of governance, but they have to have skin in the game. Everybody has the same opportunities, but it's not just this handout. They have to come in with a certain amount. We match dollar for dollar, or we loan them money. They pay it back. If they can't pay it back with cash, they work it off. But it's providing equal opportunities that teaches them responsibility and accountability. It's dealing above the line, right? So going back to the beginning, my parents and my wife's parents couldn't afford to pay for our college, and so we paid for our own way. And I worked my way through college at Kentucky Fried Chicken. My wife worked at a bookstore. And so when we had our 6 children, we didn't want any of them to think that we would just pay for that. They had equal opportunities. They had to come in with some money. They had to get scholarships. They could borrow, just like a student loan, but they had to pay it back one way or another, or we might match them. The neat thing about it is all of our 6 children got education, far more than just in a college classroom. But because of our system in our family bank, they were able to borrow money and start a business venture. I told them to fail often and fail fast, not on purpose, but don't be afraid to fail. And we started many business ventures by allowing them the opportunity to borrow money out of the family bank and then be able to pay it back. And if it was a good business venture, we've turned some of them into multi-million-dollar business ventures. So the key here is to empower your children, give them equal opportunities. If this is resonating with you, I would recommend you read more in this book, Entitlement Abolition, How to Lead Your Family from Me to We. Together, we're better. And so if you would like a free copy of this, simply claim it by going to entitlementabolitionbook.com, entitlementabolitionbook.com, and there you can contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that, and I'll pay for the book and send it out to you. There's also some powerful video instruction that you can also get. You can get an audio version. If you can't tell, I'm pretty passionate about empowering people to be able to teach their children, grandchildren, employees, whoever you care about. I mentor troubled youth. With these strategies, you're able to give these people the ability to take ownership in their future. And it's giving them a hand up, never a hand out.